The Trevani were dying. Their once magnificent crystal cities, nestled within the cavernous fissures of the gas giant moon Thalos IV, were crumbling. Atmospheric degradation had progressed beyond their technological capacity to reverse. The great civilizations of the Galactic Concord, the Hectari Dominion, the Malduvian Expanse, and the Aurelian Sovereignty had all refused their pleas for assistance. "We are deemed expendable," Lorith Vess whispered, her translucent fingers trembling as she adjusted the environmental controls in the council chamber. The air recyclers wheezed and sputtered, struggling to maintain breathable conditions. As High Sentinel of the Trevani, she bore the weight of her people's imminent extinction. Commander Drav Peleg, head of the Trevani Defense Corps, pounded his fist against the crystalline table. 70 standard cycles we've petitioned the Concord. 70! And each time they claim our atmosphere is too exotic to merit intervention. The truth was far simpler. The Trevani were considered insignificant. Their evolution in the high-pressure, methane-rich environment of Thalos IV had rendered them physically fragile outside their native habitat. Their technological contributions were minimal. Their territories harbored few valuable resources. In the calculus of galactic politics, they were a rounding error. "There is another option," offered Vashti Nim, the youngest counselor and keeper of the Stellar Archives. All eyes turned to her slender form. The newcomers to the Concord, the species called humans. A dismissive murmur rippled through the chamber. "Humans," scoffed Elder Tarum. "The bipeds from the spiral arm. They've barely mastered interstellar. Good travel." Vashti stood her ground. "Yet they've displayed unusual characteristics. Their diplomatic methodology defies conventional patterns." Lorith tilted her head, the bioluminescent filaments along her scalp pulsing with interest. "Elaborate." "The humans approach galactic society differently," Vashti explained, activating a holographic display. "They've established relations with species the Concord deems insignificant, the methane-breathing Pluvians, the hive-minded Zol, even the nomadic drift colonies." Commander Peleg narrowed his compound eyes. "So they collect oddities. That doesn't mean they can save us from atmospheric collapse." "No," Vashti agreed, "but their engineering philosophy emphasizes adaptability over optimization. Their chief diplomat, this one called Tamid Revan, specifically requested information about overlooked civilizations during their introductory summit." Lorith's antennae quivered. "You believe they might help where others refused." "I believe," Vashti said carefully, "that unlike the established powers, humans don't calculate worth based on conventional metrics. They find value in diversity." The council chamber fell silent, save for the labored gasping of the air recyclers. "Our atmospheric degradation accelerates," Lorith finally said. "The simulations give us 16 standard cycles before total collapse. Perhaps these humans merit consideration." Elder Tarum shook his head. "The Aurelians warned us. Humans are unpredictable, chaotic. Their history is rife with internal conflict." "And yet," Vashti countered, projecting new data, "they've accomplished more ecological restoration on their homeworld in 3 generations than most species manage in 20. Commander Peleg studied the projections. "Their technology appears crude but functional. If we die with dignity among the established powers or survive with the help of upstarts," Lorith declared, rising to her full height, "I choose survival. Councillor Vashti, establish contact with this human, Tamid Revan." As the council dispersed, Lorith gazed through the crystal dome at the swirling gases of Thalos IV's turbulent sky. Soon, those toxic winds would breach their weakening barriers. The Trevani had evolved over millions of years to thrive in a precise atmospheric composition, one that was now failing catastrophically. Would these humans truly see value where the mighty civilizations of the galaxy saw only an inconvenience? For the first time in years, Lorith permitted herself a dangerous luxury: hope. The human ship Kepler's Dream decelerated into the Thales system 3 weeks later, a modular vessel of mismatched components that made Commander Peleg wince. Its ungainly appearance, like several different ships melded together with little concern for aesthetics, contrasted sharply with the elegant vessels of the Concorde species. Those outer segments, Peleg observed from the observatory platform, appear to be aftermarket modifications. Vashti consulted her data tablet. Correct. Human vessels are designed for continual adaptation rather than optimal efficiency in predetermined parameters. A reflection of their evolutionary history, remarked Lorith. They adapted to multiple environments on their homeworld rather than specializing in one. The Trevani delegation watched anxiously as the human ship docked with their orbital station. Unlike the sleek shuttlecraft used by other species, the human landing module appeared bulky and over-engineered, with redundant systems clearly visible through transparent panels. When the airlock cycled open, the humans emerged wearing not the expected full environmental suits, but modified breathing apparatuses that covered only portions of their faces. Their delegation consisted of 5 individuals, of varying sizes, skin tones, and ages. "High Sentinel Lorith Vess," announced the foremost human, removing his breathing apparatus to reveal a face adorned with curly dark hair around the lower portion. "I am Ambassador Tahmid Revan. We come on behalf of the United Earth Consortium." Lorith's translator processed the human language, a complex amalgamation of sounds impossible for Trevani vocal structures to reproduce. "Ambassador," she responded through her own device, "your willingness to meet with us is deeply appreciated." The human called Tahmid smiled, displaying blunt teeth. "We've reviewed your atmospheric situation. I've brought our environmental engineering specialist, Dr. Nasrin Imami, and our xenobiologist, Dr. Oktay Bakiev." The human female stepped forward, her skin several shades darker than Tahmid's. "High Sentinel will need comprehensive data on your atmosphere's historical composition and the triggers for its current degradation." The other human, stockier with prominent facial features, added, "and biological samples from your population to understand your physiological requirements." Commander Peleg's antennae flattened warily. "You've come prepared to study our problem, not merely to discuss it." "Humans don't solve problems through committee meetings," Tamid said, his expression shifting to something the Trevani couldn't. "Interpret. We've brought a modular atmospheric processing unit. It's not a permanent solution, but it should buy us time to develop one." Elder Tarum, who had insisted on joining the delegation despite his frailty, stepped forward. "The Concorde powers deemed our atmosphere too specialized to warrant intervention. What makes you believe you can succeed where they would not even attempt?" The humans exchanged glances. The one introduced as Dr. Imami responded, "With respect, Elder, the Concorde species evolved in similar planetary conditions. Their technological development focused on optimization within narrow parameters. Humans evolved on a planet with wildly varying ecosystems, from oxygen-rich tropics to oxygen-poor high altitudes, from acidic bogs to alkaline deserts. Our engineering philosophy," added the other scientist Oktay, "prioritizes adaptability over efficiency. It's messy, redundant, and inelegant by Concorde standards, but effective across diverse conditions." "How long," Lorith asked carefully, "would your assessment require?" Tahmid's expression softened. "We've already begun. Our ship's sensors started atmospheric analysis upon entering orbit. The processing unit can be deployed within 7 of your cycles." The Trevani delegation fell silent, stunned by the humans' immediacy of action. According to Concorde diplomatic protocol, years of study would precede any intervention. "Why?" Lorith finally asked. "Why help a species with nothing to offer in return?" Tamid's face arranged itself into what Vashti recognized. From her research as a smile, a human expression of positive intent. "High Sentinel," he said, "humanity spent centuries exploiting our own world before learning that diversity, biological, cultural, philosophical, is the universe's most valuable resource. Each intelligent species represents a unique way of perceiving reality. When one is lost, all are diminished." As they proceeded to the council chamber, Lorith noticed that the humans constantly scanned their surroundings, not with suspicion, but with unbridled curiosity. Where conquered dignitaries had displayed polite indifference to Trevani architecture, these humans marveled at the crystalline structures, asked questions about their formation, suggested potential reinforcements. For the first time, the Trevani were seen not as an inconvenience, but as a wonder worth preserving. "This is unprecedented," declared Ambassador Grell of the Hectari Dominion. The holographic projection of his serpentine form dominated the emergency session of the Galactic Concord Assembly. "Humans have no authority to deploy atmospheric manipulation, technology without Concord approval." The Moldovan representative, Archon Zix, nodded her four-lobed head in agreement. "The Trevani ecosystem falls under Preservation Statute 7291. Any intervention requires a 60-cycle assessment period." Tamid Revan stood before the assembly, flanked by Dr. Imami and Dr. Bakiev. Unlike most who addressed the Concord, he showed no signs of intimidation. "Distinguished representatives," he began, 60 cycles would exceed the Trevani's survival window by 44 cycles. Furthermore, your own ecological surveys confirm that Thalas IV's ecosystem consists solely of the Trevani and their engineered support organisms. There is no natural balance to preserve, only a dying civilization. The human delegation had spent 3 weeks on Thalas IV. Their modular atmospheric processor, a massive contraption of interconnected components that the Concord species deemed aesthetically offensive, now orbited the moon, extracting harmful compounds and synthesizing the complex gaseous mixture the Trevani required. "The processor is temporary," Dr. Imami explained, projecting technical schematics. "It stabilizes their atmosphere while we develop a permanent solution, involving genetically modified algae that can perpetually maintain the required atmospheric balance." "Genetic modification," hissed Ambassador Grell, "on a scale affecting an entire moon. Absolutely forbidden." The Aurelian representative, Governor Plex, raised a tentacle. "The humans violated 17 distinct protocols. The processor must be deactivated and removed immediately." Lorith Vess, attending via hologram from Thalas IV, could remain silent no longer. "Deactivation would condemn my people to extinction within weeks." "Regrettable," Governor Plex acknowledged, "but ecological manipulation at this scale risks unforeseen consequences across neighboring systems." Tamid's expression hardened. "What consequences?" "Your own scientists confirmed the atmospheric changes would be contained to Thalas IV. It's not about science," Dr. Bakiev muttered under his breath, though loud enough for translation. "It's about precedent." Ambassador Grell's hood flared. "Indeed it is. If humans can bypass Concord protocols for the Trevani, what's to prevent similar interventions for every failing ecosystem?" "Nothing," Tamid replied simply. "And that's precisely our position. Every sentient species deserves preservation." The assembly erupted in objections. The Concord had existed for millennia by carefully managing which problems received attention and which were left to resolve themselves naturally, meaning extinction for non-essential species. When order was restored, Archon Zix spoke with measured calm. "Ambassador Revan, Earth has been part of the Concord for less than a decade. You lack the historical perspective to understand why these protocols exist." Perhaps, Tamid acknowledged, but we understand their effects all too well. 27. Sentient species have gone extinct under Concord observation protocols in the past century alone. Natural selection, declared Governor Plex. The universe's way of ensuring only the most adaptable civilizations survive. Dr. Imami stepped forward, her dark eyes flashing. With respect, Governor, that's a misapplication of evolutionary theory. Natural selection operates through random environmental pressures, not through bureaucratic decision-making about which species deserve assistance. What the humans fail to understand, Ambassador Grell said, addressing the wider assembly rather than the Earth delegation directly, is that resources are finite. The Concord cannot save every failing civilization. Cannot? Dr. Bakiev challenged. Or will not. Our atmospheric processor was constructed in 3 weeks using materials readily available in any industrial system. Lorith watched the exchange with growing unease. The humans were making powerful enemies. If the Concord ruled against them, the processor would be forcibly removed and the Trevani would perish. Yet something extraordinary happened next. The representative from the drift colonies, nomadic species rarely involved in Concord politics, requested recognition. The humans assisted our flotilla last solar cycle, the drift representative stated. When Concord vessels passed us by during a radiation storm, their ships provided shielding. They asked nothing in return. One by one, representatives from minor species began sharing similar accounts. The methane-breathing Pluvians, the hive-minded Xol. Species the Concord had deemed insignificant were standing in defense of humanity's unorthodox methods. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Concord Assembly found itself facing an unexpected coalition of the overlooked. 6 months later, Lorith Vess stood beneath the crystalline dome of the newly constructed atmospheric control center. The air in the Trevani cities had stabilized. The human's temporary processor had been replaced by a network of organic purifiers, genetically modified algae that thrived in Thalasphor's unique environment while producing the precise gaseous mixture the Trevani required. The system is self-sustaining, explained Dr. Imami, who had remained behind when most of the human delegation departed. Within 2 years, you won't need the mechanical components at all. Lorith's bioluminescent filaments pulsed with amazement, and the Concord Assembly truly approved this. Not exactly approved, Dr. Imami said with a wry smile. More like accepted a fait accompli. The coalition of independent species made it politically untenable for them to force removal. The coalition, an unprecedented alliance of minor species coordinated by Earth, had transformed galactic politics. Species long dismissed as irrelevant had found their collective voice. Ambassador Revan confided something interesting, Lorith said, adjusting a control panel. He said Earth joined the Concord not because they admired its structure, but because they intended to change it from within. Dr. Imami laughed. That sounds like Tamid. Humans have a long history of reforming flawed systems rather than abandoning them. Their conversation was interrupted by Commander Peleg, who entered with urgent news. High Sentinel, we've received a priority communication from the Xol Collective. The Hectari Dominion has blockaded their homeworld, claiming violation of resource extraction protocols. The Hectari are retaliating against coalition members, Dr. Imami deduced. They're making an example of the Xol. Lorith's antennae stiffened. What can we possibly do? The Trevani have no military vessels. No, Peleg agreed, but we have something potentially more valuable. He projected a molecular structure that rotated slowly in the air between them. Our biochemists have synthesized this compound using techniques learned from the humans. It neutralizes parasitic infections affecting Drexian livestock. The Drexians? Lorith asked, confused. They're one of the foundational species of the Concord. Dr. Imami studied the molecule with growing excitement. The Drexians lost 30% of their food supply last cycle to these parasites. The Concord solution was to extend emergency rations, treating the symptom rather than the cause. Precisely, said Peleg. We can offer this to the Drexians in exchange for their diplomatic intervention on behalf of the Zol. Lorith stared at her military commander with newfound respect. You're suggesting we engage in leverage politics, like the major powers? I'm suggesting, Peleg replied, that we apply human philosophy. We identify problems we can solve, forge connections with those we help, and build a network of mutual support. Within days, the Trevani cure was delivered to the Drexians, who were initially perplexed that a minor species would offer such valuable assistance. When they learned that the Trevani sought diplomatic intervention rather than economic compensation, their perception shifted. The Drexian consortium, swayed by both gratitude and pragmatic self-interest, pressured the Hectari to lift their blockade of the Xol homeworld. The Hectari complied, unwilling to challenge a founding Concord power. News of this diplomatic maneuver spread quickly through the coalition. The precedent was clear. Even without military might, the overlooked species could exert influence through strategic cooperation and problem-solving. On Earth, Ambassador Revan received reports of these developments with satisfaction. The coalition was functioning exactly as humanity had hoped, creating a more balanced power structure without direct confrontation. The Trevani have become quite the diplomats, he remarked to his team. From the brink of extinction to diplomatic innovators in less than a standard year. It's not just the Trevani, his aide pointed out. The Pluvians have started offering their unique mineral processing techniques to other methane-based species. The drift colonies are establishing a shared navigational network, Tahmid nodded. The overlooked species are discovering what humanity learned through bitter experience. Survival requires cooperation, not competition. Across the galaxy, a transformation was underway. Species long dismissed as evolutionary dead ends were forming. Connections, sharing innovations, and solving problems the Concord had deemed too specialized to address. And on Thalos 4, the Trevani crystal cities gleamed once more, their atmosphere renewed not just by human technology, but by a philosophy that valued all sentient life, regardless of its power, resources, or strategic importance. 5 years after humanity's intervention on Thalos 4, the Galactic Concord Assembly convened for its centennial review. For millennia, these sessions had been perfunctory affairs, reinforcing existing power structures and policies. This time was different. Tamid Revan, now Earth's senior ambassador, took his place among the coalition delegation, no longer observers, but full participants. Beside him sat Lorith Vess, representing not just the Trevani, but serving as elected spokesperson for the coalition of independent species, which now encompassed 47 formerly marginalized civilizations. The great chamber hummed with tension as Archon Supreme Kelvor of the Aurelian Sovereignty opened proceedings. We face unprecedented challenges, the Archon began. The Cygnus Rift continues to expand, threatening multiple sectors. The quantum blight affects communication systems across 3 spiral arms, and most concerning, the Void Heralds have been detected at the galaxy's edge. Tamid exchanged glances with Lorith. The threats were real, and larger than any single civilization could address, even the mighty Concord powers. For 10,000 cycles, the Archon continued, the Concord has maintained galactic stability through careful management of resources and selective intervention. This approach has served the major powers well, but not all, Lorith stated, rising to her full height. The assembly fell silent. Never before had a minor species representative interrupted an Archon Supreme. Spokesperson Vess, the Archon acknowledged stiffly. You have not been recognized. With respect, Archon, Lorith replied, her translator, conveying calm determination. Recognition has been the central issue all along. The Concord recognized only what it valued by traditional metrics: military might, resource wealth, technological uniformity. This selective recognition has cost us dearly. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The coalition representatives remained united in silent support. The Cygnus Rift, Lorith continued, expands because microfractures in space-time were deemed acceptable anomalies when they appeared in sectors inhabited by non-essential species. The quantum blight emerged from communication technologies standardized without considering their effects on diverse biospheres. And the void heralds, she paused meaningfully, were first detected by Pluvian deep space observers, whose warnings were dismissed as unreliable for 18 cycles. The Archon's color shifted, a sign of agitation in Aurelians. Your point, spokesperson? Lorith activated a holographic display. Complex data patterns filled the chamber, interconnected. Nodes representing thousands of species-specific innovations discovered and shared through the coalition. This is what we've created in 5 cycles, a network of specialized knowledge and adaptations. The coalition species evolved in environments the Concord deemed extreme or marginal. Our adaptations, once seen as evolutionary dead ends, now represent solutions to challenges that conventional approaches cannot solve. Ambassador Grell of the Hectari hissed derision. You suggest that failed species hold the keys to our survival? Preposterous. Not failed, Tamid interjected calmly. Specialized. Evolution isn't a linear progression towards some universal ideal. It's a branching exploration of possibilities. Dr. Nasrin Imami, now Earth Science Director, stepped forward. The Trevani atmospheric renewal techniques have applications for containing the Cygnus Rift's exotic particle emissions. The Zol's distributed consciousness architecture offers solutions for quantum-resistant communications, and the drift colonies' sensing technology, developed to navigate radiation storms, can detect void herald signatures at 3 times the range of standard Concord sensors. The chamber erupted in debate. Some Concord representatives dismissed these claims outright. Others demanded immediate access to the coalition's innovations. Lorith raised her hands for silence. We do not come to boast or to bargain, but to propose transformation. The Concord must evolve from a hierarchy of the powerful to a genuine collaboration of all sentient species. What precisely are you proposing? Asked the Drexian representative, who had become a tentative ally to the coalition. A new Concord, Lorith answered, with 3 foundational principles. First, that all sentient species have inherent value. Second, that diversity of adaptation and perspective strengthens us collectively. And third, that mutual aid replaces selective intervention as our guiding practice. The Archon Supreme's color darkened further. You propose to dismantle 10,000 cycles of order. We propose, Tamid said, rising to stand beside Lorith, to build something stronger. Humanity nearly destroyed itself before learning that cooperation across differences is the only sustainable path forward. The coalition does not ask permission to exist, Lorith added. We already exist. We are already cooperating, and we are already solving problems the traditional Concord approach could not. We invite you to join us as equals. For a moment the chamber was utterly silent. Then the Drexian representative moved to the center floor, a procedural signal of the highest significance. The Drexian Consortium formally recognizes the achievements of the coalition. The parasite cure developed by the Trevani saved our agricultural systems. The communication innovations of the Exol protected our networks from the quantum blight. We support structural reform of the Concord. One by one, representatives from both major and minor powers declared their positions. Not all supported change. The Chai, Hectari and Aurelians led significant opposition, but enough voices united behind the vision of a new concord to force a formal review. As the session concluded, Tahmid found Lorith gazing through the chamber's vast viewport at the galaxy beyond. "When humans first came to Thalos 4, she said quietly, "we thought you were saving one dying species. We didn't understand you were actually awakening an entire galaxy." Tahmid smiled. "Humans didn't rescue the overlooked civilizations, Lorith. We simply recognized what was already there, the untapped potential of diversity. You rescued yourselves once you realized your perceived weaknesses were actually unique strengths." Across the stars, the coalition network pulsed with activity. As formerly isolated species shared innovations, solved each other's problems, and prepared for challenges that would require all of their specialized adaptations. The Void Heralds would find not a galaxy divided by hierarchies of power, but one increasingly united in its glorious diversity. Evolution isn't just about survival of the fittest, Tahmid reflected. It's about survival of the interconnected. "And the overlooked," added Lorith, her bioluminescent filaments glowing with quiet pride, "who just needed someone to see their worth."